Test, test. There you go.
Let's go ahead and call a meeting to order. Will you please rise and join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let the record show that all board members are present and accounted for. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
been moved in second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Move on to communications, public comment. Members of the board may address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during the board consideration of that item. Please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, you should do so when that specific item is called for by the board president. All right, if you are here in person and you want to submit a comment, all you have to do is fill out a request card and give that to the board clerk. If you make sure you include your name during public comment on the agenda item, during the specific agenda item, comments are limited to 2 minutes. If you'd like to submit online via Assembly Gamut meetings, enter your name and email address, and the board assistant will provide your comment to the board. Also, if you'd like to submit via YouTube, you can type your comment in the live chat, and the superintendent will share your comment with the board as appropriate. Now is the time for you to address the board on an item, on any items that are not on the agenda. Please note that while we may not respond directly, we may ask for clarifying questions. While we won't address the issue today, please know that we are listening and we'll do our best to try and address the item at a different time. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, don't see anyone present here in the board meeting. We'll give it a minute or so for those who are watching online. No comments? All right, no comments. So we'll move right ahead, and we'll move on to now reports. We will start with the Robla Education Foundation. No, Mr. Revan. Okay. All right, move on to Robla Teachers Association. CSEA. And that brings us to the superintendent's report.
So good evening. Wanted to welcome everyone back from the winter holiday, even though we've been back for over a week. Events that I participated prior. Events that I participated prior to winter break was the Winter Wish List and Holiday Food Basket event. So I want to thank the continued partnership with Sac Republic and the Optimist Club of Sacramento. And I especially want to thank all the Robla staff and community volunteers for making the home deliveries and bringing a little bit of joy to our families during the holiday. Last Friday, staff visited all the school sites just to announce all the attendance challenge winners. For the second time in a row, I have to give props to Taylor Elementary. They were the whole school winner, but I will say it was nice to go to every site because there was at least one grade level at every site that was a winner. So every site will win something. That was nice. Yes, and I do want to thank our parents, in their partnership of emphasizing attendance and making sure that the students are here every day and on time. Terrific 10 we had yesterday, and it was fabulous, and I thought Mr. Raven was going to be here because he was our guest, so I'm surprised he's not here, but it was really good. And the budget information came out yesterday. The governor's official budget workshop is next Wednesday. Mr. Castillo and I, as well as both labor partner presidents, will attend that meeting, but I'd like to give Mr. Castillo just a few minutes to give a few highlights since so much information has been released.
I just want it's just one slide. So the staff has attended the two budget conference, CASBO and CSBA. We also watched the governor's budget. So this is the takeaways, so it's not a lot of detail. There was some details and we will learn that on Wednesday, Superintendent Chen mentioned. But what it is that there's a big discrepancy about 44% or 30 billion between what the LAF says and what the governor says. So that's going to be a lot of back and forth, so stay tuned. Second, the COLA is 0.76%, so that's not a typo. It's less than 1%. So just that alone does not even cover at what we call it the step and column in our salary increases. So I think it's for transparency. That's where we are. Another item there is that it reduces the delays. The general fund from the state general fund was covering projects for, as transition kindergarten and the preschool. We had two, Bell Avenue and Main Avenue. It appears that it's just only in the future, so the ones that already we have been approved, we're still good on that. The other one is not no proposed. That's the governor is protecting education in his budget, so there's no. The takeaway is there's no deferrals. There's no major cuts. So he's saying, I'm not going to give you any money, but I'm not going to take away. So something that is new, and there's no details on it. Oh, something that is new. I always, as the board knows, I always try to bring up new items for the what it means to us is that what they call it the attendance recovery portion. So we don't know how it's going to work, but it will give opportunities to make up for attendance loss. Could be like Saturday school or after school program. So that could be a revenue generator. Depends how that program is run. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on it. And the main, I think, is my prognosis is that the main revision will change significant from what is the governor. That's the 30 billion deficit is not, it's 44. The difference between the LAO and the governor's administration is 44%. And then once we know more about our taxes from 23, we will know more details. So no, it's one of those years where I believe that January and the May revise are going to be a lot of changes, and we do our budget based on the May revise, but just a lot of that's where we are right now. So any questions? Yes.
Did the governor clarify the difference between? Is it just the difference? Obviously, is in revenue. Where is he anticipating the additional change in revenue?
Yeah.
What's 30 billion amongst friends? But still,
No, there was not a lot of. There was some explanation, but I was not a lot of. I think it's just more about so the prior years that happens they're online. What their difference is that how optimistic they are for the future. That's a big difference. So the governor administration is very optimistic about what's happening in the for next year. So that's where the major difference are. And there was I think I was watching. There was somebody asked the same question
Mhm.
that you asked, and I did not get a clear explanation. I can just
So now, when the legislature puts together their budget, do they use the LAO number? Do they use the governor's number, or do they get to decide what number they're going to use?
So the governor, the legislators, they are the decision, but the LAO is as an independent party.
Mm-hmm.
They had to listen to them and they had to reconcile the differences based on your point. Yeah, but the governors, they're the law makers.
Got it. Okay.
I think we're hoping to find out next Wednesday what the formula the governor used to come up with that number.
I know one thing that he mentioned is the big earners. That he mentioned actually, so much. He doesn't think a lot. Many people are leaving as the other one. So that's one of the big things that they were discussing. I know that he actually said that, so that we will find that out.
Well, if they haven't left yet, that wealth tax will definitely encourage them to leave.
I did notice that CSBA did send an email out about this as well, giving their explanations, and they listed volatile capital gains.
Yeah, that's the big earners. Yeah.
And it was interesting reading CSBA's take on it as well, and then saying.
Yeah, we watched the presentation today. It was very detailed. The good thing is that sometimes one organization says one thing, another one says different thing. What I'm sharing with you is things that I hear from both from both organizations, and we will learn more detail. So,
And Mr. Castillo will give another report after next week's workshop.
thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
All right. We'll move on to board member reports. Trustee Devine.
I just hope that everybody had a great holiday season and vacation, and I have nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Cardona.
I had the opportunity also during the holidays do a basket distributions for our families in Robla, and that's just my 5th year doing it, and I will keep doing it because it's so nice to see our kids and our families getting some of these big events. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Hamilton Stark.
Nothing to report.
Trustee Barnes.
Nothing to report.
And the only thing that I have to report is upcoming in March, we have the Legislative Action Week. So traditionally every year, members of the California School Boards Association invite school board members from up and down the state to go visit with their legislators. Well, since COVID, we've actually been doing that virtually. So that's going to be taking place over a 3-day period, March 12th to 14th. And you can sign up to be able to, and basically they'll try and reconcile with our schedules, but try and make it so that we can meet with, you'll have an opportunity to meet with each of our legislators, of the legislators who represent our area, our assembly member, as well as our state senator. So I would encourage you, go to csba.org, click on Legislative Action Week, and sign up. You have to register by March 1st. And that is all I have to report. And with that, we will move on to a public hearing. We have a public hearing for Robla Charter School, formerly New Hope Charter.
All right, good evening. Thank you, President DeLuz, members of the board, Superintendent Chen, and Robla School District staff for the opportunity to hold this public hearing today. We've really truly appreciated the relational trust and the thoughtful dialogue that we've had over the last 4 years, and also just in this process of bringing forth this proposal. It's always a collaborative effort. So also, I'll introduce, usually when I come to you all, I'm flying solo. I didn't require people to be here tonight, but they showed up. I'm thankful, so I'll introduce them all in a moment. So my name is Harinder Pagani, and I'm the founder and executive director of New Hope Charter School, and I'm the lead petitioner for Robla Charter School as well. So I'm going to get assistance here with the clicker tonight so I can turn pages from Mr. Khan. Howard. All right, go ahead, Mr. Khan. There we go. So we put together an agenda outlined here for tonight's presentation. We'll start with some introductions and background information. Then we will take a look at some details of Robla Charter School and why we're calling it Robla Charter School. I'll also address that. And also, we have a school. Why are we proposing another school or a new school? So we'll address those questions. And we'll close with just time for you all to ask questions, to dive deeper into information that you need. And as always, we invite you all to visit our current school. So let's begin with introductions. First of all, to my right, right behind me is Mr. Enrique Chaveste. Mr. Chaveste teaches math and science at New Hope. And I am also very pleased to say that he is an alum of Robla School District. He attended Glenwood Elementary School, and we're very blessed to have him on our team. Next to him is Mr. Khan, Anjum Khan. He's our school director. Mr. Khan basically runs the day-to-day of the school, and so we're pleased to have him with us. To his right, 2 spaces over, is Miss Aquila. Welcome. This is one of our parents, and Miss Aquila also brought her mom this evening. So welcome to you both. Thank you for being here. but there's also a second row. And so to the far right, raise your hand, Mr. Shetty. That's Hari Shetty, soon to be Dr. Shetty. He's working on his doctorate. And he is our 7th grade math teacher and 8th grade as well. And thank you. And then next to Mr. Shetty is Sergio Fuentes. He's our counselor and social worker. And next to Mr. Fuentes is Lisa Martucci, who's our bookkeeper. Next to Lisa is Simon Deo. He is our registrar. And next to him is Amisha Narayan, one of our paraprofessionals. And next to Amisha is Maria Torres, one of our wonderful paraprofessionals who works closely in our special education program, as well as our general education program with Lisa Vargas, who is one of our education specialists. All right. Whew, okay. So thank you all for being here. And so I shall move forward. Let's go back to that slide, Mr. Khan. Thank you for being on it, but thank you. All right. So this petition approval process, I just want to touch on that because it's been 4 years since we went through the petition approval process. And this is actually for me, this is my 8th now charter petition. And New Hope was my 7th one. So this process will be very similar. We submitted a petition in the fall, in November to be specific. Tonight is the public hearing. It's an opportunity for you all as board to ask questions, get more information about the proposal. And then our next step would be a board vote on February 8th. So tonight is just more information gathering. Mr. Khan? Thank you. So some background before discussing the attributes of Robla Charter School. We wanted to share some important background information. And from this slide, you can see that our intent is that this school opens in the fall of 2024-25, so the next school year, if approved by your vote. This new charter school basically would replace the existing New Hope Charter School, and so that we can expand our services to students from K through 8 instead to transitional kindergarten through 12th grade. So that's what's different about this. There are several reasons why we believe that the Robla School District Governing Board should approve this Robla Charter School proposal. So, go ahead, Mr. Khan. All right. So a couple of things here that I'll go into more detail in the next couple of slides. But so basically it puts the Robla School Board as well as Robla community able to have a K-12 program in their own Robla School District boundaries. So this is something that we have not had. I know the Robla School District has been around for over 100 years, but as far as having parents being able to choose to send their students to a local and governed or K-12 program governed by this board, I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while, I believe. So go ahead, Mr. Khan. So going a little deeper with that, by approving this new petition, basically the Robla School District Board will be solely responsible for and unfettered in exercising local oversight of the charter school. So right now, we send students off. Even New Hope is sending students after 8th grade off to high schools in the area. And I'll get into more detail about the results of students going to local high schools. But there is no oversight. There is no weight that we carry in terms of how those schools operate with our kids, with our alumni, with our Robla students. And it's very difficult to find data specifically. The question I've asked of the neighboring district folks is, how are our students doing when they leave Robla School District? And so I've found aggregate data, but I haven't found data that's specific to students coming from Robla. So we'll look at that data. Again, the approval decision closely aligns with the original renewal cycle for New Hope Charter School. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a school, you all approved us in 2019. So a charter petition is approved for 5 years typically. So at this point, the plan was that we would renew our K-8 charter petition for New Hope. So what we're doing instead is saying, instead of just going through a renewal of that original charter petition, we'd like to add these grades 9 through 12 to be authorized by you to be able to serve our students, just continue to move students forward. Again, it's an option. Kids and families don't have to stay with us for high school. Many will want to play sports. Many will have other interests that we cannot meet. So they will have the option, though, if they want to stay with us or move to traditional high school programs as well. So this shift in, I'm going to go down here, the shift in the petition is happening now instead of approving a renewal petition, as I said. I'm going to go a little deeper into that later. So I'm going to just jump through. Go ahead, Mr. Khan. Okay. So let's go into background on this proposed school and this proposal. You always have to have a mission and a vision. We try to align everything we do with building on the best practices of Robla. And so this initial, the mission you see up here, the charter school's mission is to provide a safe, nurturing, and supportive learning environment that will empower students to maximize their academic potential. Similar to what Robla School District's mission statement is, our vision is that graduates will be empowered to be independent, determined, and compassionate global leaders who think critically, collaborate, and serve willingly, and work passionately toward a sustainable future in the world they will inherit. We basically want to raise up leaders who have the ability to choose what path they want to go on to take their place in our society. So in addition to having a mission founded in high expectations, there is a need for a high quality education option in Robla, including a high school program that serves students all the way through 12th grade. So following the early success that we've had with students, we're really looking at this next step is really to ensure students have this local high quality option to ensure they're prepared for college, career opportunities going forward. Again, the current traditional public school options are not maximizing the academic potential of Robla alumni, especially when it comes to post-secondary outcomes, as we'll show on the next slide. So what you're looking at here are, this is data from 2021-22. This is the most recent data that we have from the California Department of Education. And again, what's the need? We have a school, why do we need to continue to have kids, give them an opportunity? Why do we need to have our scholars have the opportunity to have a different option? So if you look at the top, the first table, we're looking at TRUSD, Twin Rivers Unified School District, where the vast majority of our students are going for high school. So we pulled that data, we looked at the county as well as the state averages. So first is the graduation rate. So if you look at the results achieved by the you can see that the high school graduation rate actually compared to Sac County and the state is actually higher. It's a little bit higher. But the outcomes for the graduates after high school are well below the averages achieved at both the county and the state level. So if we take a look at A through G eligibility, and A through G is the course of study that basically qualifies our students as they leave high school to attend UC, University of California, or California State University. So our current high schools in this district in Twin Rivers, it's about a 34% eligibility rate. So about a third. Now, I don't know if that, what percentage of that are Robla alumni, but that's their overall in the district. The next column is the third one, the CCI. That's the college and career indicator. So 28.5% of students who are leaving Twin Rivers Unified School District high schools are actually prepared. 28.5% are prepared for college or career opportunities.
But when you say Twin Rivers, that's not, for example, our kids who leave here generally are either going to go to, they're either going to go to Grant or they're going to go to Rio Linda.
Correct.
So it's not just those two schools, but it's Twin Rivers as a whole.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Correct. And you'll see, and I could pull those numbers and share them as well. Those are similar, but the next two items that I have, President Deleuze, I think also is significant. So the percentage of graduates that are going on to colleges, and that includes 2-year colleges, not just 4-year colleges, is about 38.6%. But the percentage of students who are graduating and then going on to University of California and CSU from Twin Rivers is 13.3%. Now, at the county level and the state level, it's not like it's amazing numbers there either. Let's be, very honest here. We can do a better job across the board, but where our students are going and the opportunities they're being given for whatever reason, kids are not being prepared or are not prepared for college and career opportunities when they leave high school, nor are they actually going to UC and CSU in huge numbers. Again, 13.3% are going to UC and CSU schools. I'll pause there. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. Mr. Khan. All right. So then I'll get into, like, as we design this program, what makes it unique, and as well as the need for this new program that extends from TK through 12. So go ahead, Mr. Khan. Okay. So this is just for all grades overall. The unique features of Robla Charter School is there is instruction that includes the themes of STEM and arts for all grades. Individualized learning plans for English learners. I'll show what our numbers, our percentages look like for the English learners. You all have heard me speak of that. We have a pretty high percentage, as well as students with learning disabilities. Another feature is home visits. We've actually done home visits even at the middle school level. We continue to do that. We haven't done them like every single home we haven't visited, but in the past we've met in families' homes or on their porch or in a park, but just get off of our campus to go meet families to build that relationship. We'll continue to do off-campus experiences, including field lessons or field trips and college visits, student-led conferences where students set goals, and then when they have their conference with their teacher and parents or family, the student leads the discussion about where they are with their goals and their achievement. And then you met Mr. Fuentes earlier, our counselor. This will continue to be a feature of our school throughout this whole spectrum, comprehensive wraparound support services that include social emotional learning, mental health counseling, and a social worker. We have both in Mr. Fuentes right now because we're small, but we would extend that to be able to make this accessible to students and families. All right, so this is specific to the TK through sixth grade. Again, I just want to reinforce that the TK through sixth grade is an independent study model. This is not an on-campus model. So TK through six, students would benefit from this program where they have academic activities that are modeled for families, student, parent, work with a support teacher that is assigned to them, just like a classroom teacher would be, who then the family then replicates what the teacher has modeled in a home-based independent study environment. This empowers parents as well as the educator at the same time and allows students to improve their academic skills in this cohesive model. The other great thing with this model is that even though they might be working in an independent study model where they're not on campus, they still continue to have that support from the teacher, and they still continue to do things to provide real-world connections through learning experiences and outings for families that enhance academic learning. Again, these students, what we're looking at is that because we're a charter school, students actually can attend a charter school anywhere in California, wherever they may be living. So independent study students can be anywhere in the state of California. Largely, though, we expect students to be from this region. But this does not mean we're trying to pull students from Robla School District. That would go against the grain. What we want to do is bring more students in to the work that we're doing in Robla through this model. Okay, and here are the features for our middle school, as well as the 7 through 12 program as a whole. A couple of things I want to point out. This is a small middle school environment that we currently have. And what we're proposing is as we grow, facilities obviously is something that we are working hard to address. But ultimately, we want our 7 through 12 grades on the same campus, a small middle and high school program that will have a consistency for program or for students where the program begins at 7th grade for them on campus, and for 6 years they can continue with us. again, this is a program that will have daily advisory, which includes themes of social emotional learning. But at the high school setting, I'll get into that, what advisory looks like. But this smaller learning environment creates a safer space, creates a more connected partnership with students, families, and staff. Also, in terms of our daily Spanish classes for all students, that would continue into the high school program as well. One program that's very important to us that Robla has had for years now is the dual language immersion program at Glenwood. So with that program, we would have students continue. In fact, we've been working closely with Glenwood Elementary for sixth graders who are finishing up the dual language immersion program to now have an option to continue the dual language immersion program into middle school and potentially into high school. Okay. So finally, here's some specific features of the high school grades. Again, this is for grades 9 through 12, located within the Robla School District boundaries. It's a college prep high school focused on supporting all students. The A through G work that I talked about, that coursework, that is the high school graduation requirement for this school. So students graduate A through G eligible. Students must complete the coursework required to be A through G eligible to earn a C or better in their classes in order to earn credit. So it's a college-focused advisory and personalized college counseling. Again, it's a small high school environment. We're not expecting every student from our 8th grade to stay with us. Again, it depends on what's the best program for them. And if this is the best program for them, we want them to stay with us. Okay. This is our enrollment plan. This is a very intentional way that we've begun to roll out New Hope. Likewise, we would add one grade at a time. If you look at the bottom half of the first column, 2024-25, 9th grade, then 10th grade, then 11th grade. So students would just keep moving forward with us until we have that whole spectrum. So enrollment numbers are key, but it's also important who is enrolling in this school. So if you look at our school, this campus would be the first one again in Robla that serves grades 7 through 12. And it is important that it is accessible for students and families of Robla. So that's, again, goes back to why we're proposing to call this Robla Charter School. Again, this is a working name for us. It's not that we have to call it Robla Charter, but we wanted to make that very clear who this is for and who we're trying to serve. So shown on the slide is New Hope Charter School's 2022-23 demographics. And Robla Charter School plans to basically duplicate these demographics with our enrollment. So basically, we'd just be serving the same students. But what you'll see here is an overrepresentation of several student groups attending the charter school. This includes several student groups who qualify as traditionally underserved, African American, Hispanic, English learners, homeless students, students with disabilities, and socioeconomically disadvantaged. If you go down to the second to the last row, students with disabilities, we have 22.2% of our students who qualify for special ed services. If you look across that row, that second to the last row at the bottom there, our percentages are much higher than even Robla School District, as well as the neighboring district, the county, and the state. But we're proud to have that opportunity to serve all students. Our students who are English learners, we have almost 32%, very similar to the district, but still higher than the neighboring district and county and state. So those students, English learners, students with disabilities, students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and students who are in the dual language immersion program, these are the students that we're proposing to continue serving, and that consistency is so important for them. Okay. So we want to just end our discussion here tonight by sharing the benefits of the school. I'll try to go through these quickly. Benefits not only for the community, but for the district as well. Okay. So again, I mentioned the original charter petition was for a startup school and contained the education program to the best of our ability. It was based in best practices of Robla as well as just educational research, but it was theoretical. But now we've been operating for almost 3 years, right, on this campus. And we've learned our students. We've learned much more about our families and what their needs are. So this program will refine the academic program for all students. for all grade levels. And there are also a couple of other shifts that are important. For special education purposes, currently we are under the SCOE Charter SELPA. That's because, with our partnership with Robla School District, we've been able to do that. But we would join the El Dorado County Office of Education's Charter SELPA for special education services, so we can expand on the programs that we serve or provide right now. The additional piece, and I did this for you, Superintendent Chen, just wanted to add this, the math component. You asked me about this at one of our meetings. So one of the things that's important to us, again, is that it's not just theoretical. We're looking at students that we are serving, but also as students are leaving Robla, how they're performing. So the addition of the instructional program for high school grades includes a unique feature, specifically in math, for how instruction will be delivered. So the high school math sequence will follow the traditional pathway, in contrast to the integrated pathway that Twin Rivers is following. That's an approach that is not really produce strong results for Twin Rivers high school students. If we go to the next slide. So you'll see that on the CASP math results, we have 22.27% of students who are either at level 3 or level 4, meaning that they've met or exceeded the state standards for mathematics. That's in this integrated program. So they're taking Algebra 1 and geometry as part of that. So it's not very cleanly separated out. The way our course sequence would work is that students would ideally, even in 7th and 8th grade, we want kids to complete Algebra 1 by 8th grade. We want students to take geometry by 9th grade, Algebra 2 by 10th grade, trigonometry or pre-calculus by 11th grade, and then AP calculus by 12th grade. So looking at this data, if you look at that second or third column, 11th grade math percentage not meeting standard, kids who are at level 1, who are far below, about 53.86%, almost 54% of kids going on to high schools are really at level 1. That means they're far below the standard. So that's not acceptable, and we think we can do better with a different approach. Mr. Khan? All right. So this concludes our presentation, and thank you for allowing me to throw out a lot of information at you. So as I mentioned earlier, on February 8th, there will be a vote by the Robla School District Governing Board to approve or propose changes to the petition. And at this point, I'm happy to take questions. And again, we invite you all to come visit our school anytime, and we'd love to have you come visit.
I
Thank
have
you.
some questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Trustee Devine.
So the first question, back on slide 6, it says that Robla will have sole responsibility for and federal exercising local oversight. Are you planning on getting rid of your personal board and leaving it to us? Because that's almost what it sounds like.
No, thank you for the clarification. No, we have our own board.
Yes.
Absolutely. But this allows this board, the Robla board, to have input, to have, really help us to continue to build on the best practices of Robla. So that program, again, this program that we're proposing is for the Robla community. It's not a high school program that's outside of your jurisdiction.
Right.
So this is a program that you still oversee.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Good
because it's
clarification.
like we're in charge of oversight, but we're not on your board. So I just want to clarify that. The second question is if you have been looking for new sites, because with the high school expanding, a middle school and a high school on the Glenwood Elementary campus may not be the best.
Absolutely, yeah.
thing. So I want to know if you were researching new locations.
Yes. Yes, to answer your question, yes. The challenge is that we have to stay legally within the Robla School District boundaries, and sometimes it's difficult to find either commercial property or a builder who wants to build a school in these boundaries, right? But we have a couple of different folks that we're working with, a commercial realtor, and we're also working with our architect to help us be able to come up with something. But that is the big question that we have as well.
Do you have any timeline ideas, like a guesstimate?
Guesstimate, I don't want to have a guesstimate, but our goal would be, I'll say it this way. So next year we'd like to have ninth grade, right? And we're small enough right now with our enrollment that we can host the ninth graders there with the seventh and eighth, right? It's just a subset of the eighth graders moving forward into ninth grade.
Right.
So it's not a huge group of students, but by fall of 2025, we want to be in at least a separate building for the high schoolers.
Okay. Like a separate building, not on the Glenwood campus?
Correct.
Oh, okay. The next question I had was, what kind of services are provided for your independent study students? Do they have to come into site to receive services, or with your home visit, is that included with your home visits?
Yeah, great question. So with the independent study, those students are our students, and they're entitled to all the same services that everybody else receives. So if they receive speech services, we would do it depending on, how geographically far they're located. But if they can physically come in, then we could provide that on campus, like if they come in once a week for speech, for example. But we do teletherapy quite a bit with our students, especially with speech. So it'll be a combination of in-person and teletherapy.
Okay. I also wanted to say thank you for continuing on the dual immersion program from Glenwood. I think it's a great program. It helps every student, helps just a lot. And so I wanted to say thank you for extending that out. And lastly, I would love to hear from our parent from your school and hear about her experiences with New Hope.
Sure, Akila.
What we'd like to do first is go ahead and let's get through our questions, and then we'll open up the rest of the hearing for other folks to comment.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay. Any other questions? I had one question. So the numbers for the enrollment numbers that you have listed here for 24-25, how do those compare to this year's enrollment numbers?
So for this year, we have like 166 students in just 7th and 8th grade. And so we don't have K through 6. So that includes the K6 independent study, which they wouldn't be on campus. So we're expanding. So we would probably get up to about 250 total. In our last year, we actually were at 210. So it wouldn't be a huge bump from where we were last year to where we are this year, or from 2 years ago to next year.
So the addition of, so you're looking at, for just next year, the addition of 50 TK through 6, and then another 70 ninth graders. Between that and then just the growth over where you are this year, I mean, that's a pretty significant growth in 1 year. What's your methodology for arriving at these numbers, and what's your strategy for reaching them?
Right. So first, in terms of the TK through 6 students, so again, as I mentioned, we cannot have more than 20% of our total enrollment be in the K6, TK through 6 program. So we brought that down. Actually, 50 kids is less than 20%, right, of that total enrollment. So typically what we do is we have outreach to families in the TK6 independent study world. These are families, sometimes they've gone to private schools. Some of these families, for health reasons, or they've been through the public school system, they want to try something different. And so there are families who, especially during COVID, started doing different approaches. Sometimes we have private schools where they're closing or their costs are too high for families. They want to have a smaller, as opposed to a traditional big public school experience, but sometimes parents want to do more of the homeschooling themselves and be the teacher themselves. So there's some good programs out there in terms of pretty good programs in our area for independent study. So we've looked at them and studied them and their practices. But in terms of like our outreach, it's pretty wide. But so we get sometimes people who just like see what we're doing and they want that for their child. Maybe they've had some issues socially or some academic issues in the traditional public school. As far as the, just the projection for 9-12, that's 70 students. We just looked at the, typically like there's attrition, about 10%. So we looked at our students in terms of who might be interested, who may not be interested in terms of staying with us for 9th grade. So we just did that in terms of just, it's more of a guess. We haven't like officially gone to our parents because this isn't official. And so what we did was more so just did that from historical data of how we see enrollment trends from 7th to 8th. So we kind of projected forward with 8th to 9th. So, and if you look at the trend on that enrollment, if you go diagonally, each time you go diagonally, there's about a 10% drop off. So.
Okay. Any additional questions?
I have a question. I was trying to go back to the report that you gave at the last
Yes.
meeting, and there are some interesting intervention strategies here, but I guess I don't understand how they differ from what you've been doing now. We haven't seen. Well, again, I'm new here, so excuse me, like if I'm like misstepping somewhere, but I don't see clear growth in the 7th and 8th grade to be like, let's move to 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th grade. And so I'm wondering, like, what was the thought behind moving to 9th through 12th versus just trying to really hone in and do 7th and 8th really, really good?
Yeah, great question. And so I think for us, number one, we've had students really about 2 years on the campus with us because the first year that we opened, our facility wasn't ready. And so we only were able to get on the campus in January. So the other thing is just in terms of the results and the data, most of our students, as you saw in the demographics I showed, 22.2% are coming with IEPs. We have students who are English learners. So that's a slower growth model. So while the data, when you look at CASP data, statewide tests, that shows that our kids are moving. There's not a ton of students in the met or exceeded category. But one thing that I showed from the kids in the math for 11th grade, there was a lot of kids in level 1. We've moved a lot of kids from level 1 to level 2, and they are progressing. When we look at our local data, like our internal NWEA is a new assessment that we're using, but also we've been using IXL. So when we look at that data, that really shows us that our students are making progress. Also, when we look at our students and how we're serving them, we start to really gain momentum with our students. 7th grade, they come to us, they might be 2, 3, 4 years behind, but they start to make progress. 8th grade, they really start to grow, both academically and socially, emotionally, but then that's it. We only get that shot for 2 years with them, and it goes so quickly. We're already halfway through this school year. So in order for us to really have those interventions and really make sure that they're effective, we need to have more time. Having only 2 years is frustrating for us and for our team to be able to say this is working or not. If we have more time and we're doing things that we're doing with the longer school day, we have tutoring programs, we have advisory, we have all these different interventions that we're doing, as you mentioned. But if it's only done for a couple of years, just as kids are approaching the level they're supposed to be, and then they're gone, that data doesn't show up because every year then we're kind of starting over. But if we have that longitudinal data, then that will show. And historically in schools that we've worked with or built and operated, that's how it's worked.
Any additional questions?
No, but I would love to hear from the
Yeah. Okay.
just about your experience, the positives, benefits, all of that.
Okay. Yes, please. So what that would
I'm sorry. I also have one more.
one more question. There you go.
I also have one more suggestion.
Yes.
Sorry. That I think traditionally we've been trying to keep with the exception of New Hope, we've been trying to keep the names of the schools based off of the streets that they're on. And so I would have some hesitancy with calling it Robla Charter School.
No, absolutely. But again, know that this is just what we did was just a working title. Originally, we actually were going to call New Hope Robla Charter School. Again, just to emphasize the partnership and that it's for this community. But if we can call it New Hope 2.0, then that's what we'll call it, whatever it might be. But we don't want there to be any discomfort or any issue. We want it to be known, though, that this school is for this community, and just as we've done with the K-8 program.
I had a question. I was looking the budget expenditure last in the percent in LCAP last year,
Yes.
and with the amount the students that you have last year, 2023, I'm concerned about money-wise, how you guys going to be able to handle this situation, because all these numbers that you give us right here, they are projectable.
Correct.
Well, we may have it, we may exceed it, we may don't have any.
Correct.
And for me, it's really important that we are in reach economic-wise,
Right.
to be available, sustain the school and the students and the programs without
Absolutely.
any debit or
Right.
back payments or things, and because that doesn't just look on your size, also look bad in our,
Right.
because we also are responsible for
Absolutely.
in some
Oversight.
point, oversight in these situations. And I do like to see how realistic we are when become, and money wise, how we're gonna be able to handle 7, 8, 9, and when we have only projected numbers that we don't can, if we cannot reach it, we're gonna be in
Right.
trouble.
And the key, and thank you, Trustee Cardona. A key also is that enrollment, right? And so right now, 7th, 8th is it. That's the, the options families have. But after this, and sometimes they leave before because they want to get to whatever school they're going to. But having really the whole 7 through 12, TK through 12 process for parents, that gives them stability and gives them a reason to stay. So I built in the attrition of kids, leaving about 10% every year. But if we have a program that provides that stability and consistency, we will keep them there. So enrollment and attendance, of course, drives our funding. So if we expand slightly and very carefully, not add 200 or 300 ninth graders, we're just saying we want to take those kids that want to stay with us and continue to grow them out very carefully. But as we grow, we will be self-sustaining. That's how we put those projections.
All right, and with that, we'll open the hearing, and we'll have anybody who'd like to come up and speak in regards to it. Would like to encourage you to please fill out a public comment card if you'd like to get up and speak. All right, we're going to start with Akila Barfield. Yes.
Nervous. So my name is Akila Barfield. I'm an alumni of the Robla district. I went to Bell Avenue, Robla Preschool, Taylor Street. Then I went to Norwood Elementary, Norwood Junior High. It was cool because it was like the first 2 years it was made, but once I got to high school and went to Grant, it was a different experience. It was a culture shock for me. So like how he just talked about, like, the college prep and everything, we didn't get that at Grant. So once I got to college, I started very low ARC because I didn't have any of the classes. They kind of just passed us through. So I went through that. I got my criminal justice degree, went to Sac State, did social work. Now I'm enrolled to do my business administration degree. So I've been working with Mr. Khan very closely through this school year. My son's a 7th grader at New Hope Charter. And my biggest thing is basically advocating for the kids and the parents to bridge the gap with the teachers and administration. So we talk almost daily. What could I do better as a parent to be more involved? What could I do with the children to be more involved? So that's something that's been working for me. So when I was notified that, they want to do 9th grade, I was all for it because I don't want my son to have that experience that I had with Twin Rivers if it hasn't progressed in the last, 12 years since I graduated from there. So that's really been my biggest thing. And I'm just happy about how everything's going. And I love the teachers. They're very open with me. We talk all the time. We text. If anything my son's doing wrong, they know they could call me immediately. I work literally 2 minutes down the way. So I'm always there. I've been here, 3-4 times this week already, spent an hour with them, talked with the teachers and seeing is there something I could do? And one thing I have noticed is I think it needs to be more parent involvement. A lot of parents aren't involved with these kids and it puts a lot of pressure on the teachers. Then we have parents like, well, I feel like the teacher should be doing more, but I feel like parents should be doing more. So I wanted to know if there's anything we could do as far as getting workshops to get parents out, more parent volunteer, anything with social interaction to where we could bridge that gap. So that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else who'd like to speak? All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Move on to presentations. And we will start with the 2022-23 audit report.
Tonight, our audit partner, that's Aubrey Main from Wilkinson, Hamley and King, will present our 22-23 audit report. So she's doing a lot of audit reports throughout the state, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, it's good to see you all again, members of the
A
board.
second by everybody else kind of
Sure.
files out.
You don't want to know about the audit?
It's important.
Other than the facilities update, this is the part I've been anticipating the most.
Very glad I could be here for you. I just happened to be in Sacramento today, and my partner who did this audit was unable to, he was having a hard time coordinating the Zoom, so I told him, I said, hey, I'm already in Sacramento, let me just stop on by. So
Excellent.
it worked out.
Excellent. Feel free to go ahead.
Okay. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk to you about the 22-23 audit report. Is it going to be pulled up on the screen? Well, it might make it easier for people to know what I'm talking about. Okay, and then now I'm going to ask you to go almost all the way to the end of the report, probably about page 99-ish. All right, let's keep going a couple more pages. Up one. There we go. 109.
109.
Almost there on my guess.
Pull it up on ours as well.
Oh, can I control this? Oh, even better. I don't have to talk through it. Okay. I'd like to start here because this is a summary of the results of the audit. So it's a really good way to get a quick overview of the results of the audit. On the financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion, which means the financial statements as presented in this audit report are a fair representation of the financial position of the Robla School District as of June 30, 2023. We did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls on the financial statements, and there was no non-compliance that was material to the financial statements. For federal awards, we also issued an unmodified opinion with no findings of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls over compliance, and no audit findings required to be reported in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations. We audited the child nutrition cluster and the special education cluster for this year. For state compliance, also an unmodified opinion with no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls identified, but we did have an audit finding, which starts right here. It was on independent study, and what happened is that the master agreement that was in place for independent study was missing some of the elements required in Education Code 51747, which is a condition of apportionment. So I know that the district has worked with our auditors and have already corrected the issue moving forward. And then it is also our recommendation that once the state certifies the report, that the district apply for a summary review to get the penalty waived. It's actually quite a common finding, especially the last couple of years with all of the changes to the independent study program. So we know that the finding has been remediated as long as there's no old copies hanging around that get accidentally used. So, can I answer any questions for the board? Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I need to go help her get access to the.
Okay. Now, my favorite part of the agenda, facilities update.
You say that, but I mean, that was the most efficient audit report I have ever.
Yes, yes.
Reverse pay scale, right? The quicker they go. Good evening, folks. A couple of caveats to the presentation. This was submitted prior to the governor's budget, so I'll talk about that orally at the end of the presentation. Talk about impacts to projects and to future funding, as I'm sure that's part of the questions you'll have. But overall, we just went through a RFP RFP process for architectural services for the Bell Avenue cafeteria project, and as well as the Main Avenue TKK project as well. Over at the Bell Avenue preschool project, which is currently underway, we did achieve closeout. We had 2 rooms that were not DSA closed out. We had to go back, and DSA requested us to do that before we could open up the new DSA number. And then another update in there as well is that the local fire agency was requiring us to install or verify that we had automated fire sprinklers as part of the project. They said alternatively we could just put a new fire hydrant. Believe it or not, a new fire hydrant is a lot more expensive than sprinklers. So we've gone back and submitted those back to the local agency for their approval. That is the last step we need for DSA approval to go forward. In parallel with that, we are engaging with the contractor to start putting together the bid package for the guaranteed maximum price to move forward with the construction of that project. We were hoping to get that underway in February. We're trying to establish what that time will be given the delay from the DSA approval going forward. But in parallel with that, we have been working with district staff on completing a transition plan to relocate those preschool students into interim housing on the site in order to accommodate that going forward, and also to deal with some of the on-site logistics. We actually had a meeting this afternoon to discuss on those details, and the district will be moving personnel over the weekend to facilitate that. The site will continue to have access to that building until construction actually commences, but we wanted to make sure that we had ample time to put those folks in their interim housing so that we can be as least disruptive as possible to the overall educational program. Talk about that, and then we talk about similar thing over here as well in terms of an RFQ also went out for professional services related to the project at Main Avenue. That is for the consultants related to the California Environmental Quality Act, DTSC, Department of Toxic Substance Controls. Thank you very much. Geotechnical engineering, surveying consultants, which will be utilized by folks. So we're putting that into place for district review so that we can send that out for consideration for additional consultants there as well. Speaking of the budget, I got a couple emails when that came out. There are 2 major components to the governor's budget, which will affect the future funding of schools for the 24-25 fiscal year and potentially into the 25-26 fiscal year. The first of which is the school facilities program. The school facilities program, as we often reference to it as the state aid program. This provides school districts with grants for modernization and new construction of projects. As the board may recall, there's a number of applications we have currently submitted to the state for reimbursement for projects we've completed. So this is the modernization application at Bell Avenue, some additional construction over at Main, and the like. In the original budget or projection for 24-25, the governor was to fund from the state's general fund approximately $875 million into that state school facilities program. In the latest proposal, if you were wondering how they got the things to balance out, they have removed about $500 million of that funding. So they've reduced the estimated funding for 24-25 to $375 million. In the hopes that a new statewide school bond is placed on the November ballot, it's anticipated that the $375 million allocated for 24-25, and remember, that starts January 1, goes to June 30th of 2025. So in that process, we believe that $375 million, they're hoping bridges the gap between the applications currently on there and then by to the point of time where they're able to sell the bonds from a successful bond measure at the state level. I think that they took out the $500 million, assuming that a statewide bond measure gets onto the ballot in November, and then secondarily that it passes and they'll be able to replenish the program sometime in calendar year 25, and that's where they saw that reduction. The second item was the, as Mr. Castillo had alluded to previously, was the preschool TKK facilities grant program. Now, the district has been awarded two program grants to date, one over at Bell Avenue and one over at Main Avenue. Those funding sources are part of last fiscal year and the current fiscal year. There is nothing in the governor's budget saying that they're going to go back and claw back those dollars. So the allocations that were awarded in both the previous fiscal year and the current fiscal year have been preserved. They've been set aside and they're there. That said, the state will become very aggressive with folks that do not meet their deadlines in terms of clawing some of that dollars back, I would anticipate, and making that available back to the general fund. At this point in time, we don't anticipate having any issues meeting those deadlines, but the funding for those two projects is preserved in their respective fiscal years and will be made available to the projects going forward. Now, where it does affect the district is going to be in the opportunity to apply for a round 5. Originally, there was an additional round of funding that was proposed to occur in 24-25 of approximately $550 million. In the current proposal, that allocation is being pushed from fiscal year 24-25 to 25-26. This is the second time that particular round of funding has been delayed due to budget shortfalls. And so the good news is that they're preserving it as a line item into the future. The drawback is that they continue to delay that particular implementation of that program. So good news is the funding that the district has preserved. Future funding opportunities will be delayed, but they're still currently outlined in his proposal going forward. The other portion that's worth mentioning is that with the reduction of the $875 million for the SFP down to $375 million, there will be a noticeable delay or postponement of the pace of which the state is going to be awarding the grants. So as we mentioned at our last board meeting with the budget deficit, we anticipate that with the lower amount of funding, it's not necessarily that they're going to consider less projects, they're just going to take their time. So instead of maybe trying to streamline it and spend this year's dollars and so forth, they may just kind of dole it out at a slower pace, which they have done in the past, especially up until that November bond initiative is considered. So what we anticipate at this time is that the state will continue to process applications. They will take a significantly slower and more deliberate pace as we go towards November. And if the bond passes in November, we'll see a rapid acceleration in the processing applications. If it does not pass in November, I would anticipate a large cash infusion from the state's general fund into that program because there are other economic factors that kick in if that program runs out of money. As we talked about briefly at our last meeting, if the state school facilities program runs out of dollars, every single school district in the state of California is then eligible to enact level 3 developer fees, which is the highest cost that you can actually get from developers to mitigate new students coming into different neighborhoods caused by development. And under that model, for example, Mr. Castillo, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I believe that right now you guys collect probably about $1.40 in developer fees per square foot. Yeah, so it of the total of the statutory rate. It's about $2.30 per square foot, and that is that number would jump to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $9 to $10 per square foot if level 3 developer fees were enacted. So that gives you an idea of the cost that would be pushed onto developers, homeowners, residents if the school bond program is not replenished. In fact, the authorization for the current school bond program was exhausted 2.5 years ago. And the governor has been putting money in from the general fund surplus in order to keep that alive to bridge the gap between the authorization ending and a new statewide bond in order to avoid this potential situation. So we'll continue to bring the board updates regarding those particular programs. But I did want to reassure the board that As it goes for the current programs, we do not have a direct impact on the funding sources, given the state's budget announcements. Obviously, if that changes, we will ring the bell, wave the flag, start a fire, and hop up and down as best as we can. So, with that, happy to answer any questions the board may have. Yeah.
Any questions? No?
Basically wait and find out what the state does. Fingers crossed.
That is correct, except that the stuff you currently have, you already have.
Right.
Right, and it's all the future stuff going forward. So I think, in terms of additional facilities improvements beyond those, yes, those are things that we're going to wait and see what the governor does and what the state does. But for right now, you can rest assured that we're okay with our current set of funding models.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to item C, Williams UCP quarterly report for the second quarter.
I'm happy to report there are 0 complaints regarding sufficiency of textbooks, facilities, or vacancy or misassignments.
Excellent. And now moving on to D, teacher professional growth update.
I would just like to say, when I was reviewing all the presentations before the board meeting, this one it just popped out so much, and it really got me excited, and thank you for putting that much effort into the actual look of the presentation.
Engagement. On to them, because they definitely developed the presentation.
It's like I can't look away.
Well, welcome. Welcome, board members, Superintendent Chen, and my fellow audience members. So the Robla Teacher Professional Growth System, as you know, this is a tool that assesses the professional abilities of our educators and encourages them to find growth opportunities within their professional practice. So you may notice we have some new faces, one new face to the team. As you all know, Crystal Saladin retired last year after several years of service in the Robla School District, and she left her legacy to these two well-equipped people. So Marcos joined the team this year, replacing Crystal as our new peer facilitator this year. And Cheryl has been our peer facilitator for 3 years now. This is her 3rd year of service in that role. But longtime teachers in the Robla School District, I didn't hire Cheryl, but I remember hiring Marcos. So I just want to say, full disclaimer, I am not the expert in the day-to-day ins and outs of this program. We leave that in their capable hands, and my role is really just to make sure that the contract language aligns with the program responsibilities and that we're meeting those obligations and providing advisement in that area. But they definitely are the experts. A lot of kudos to them and a lot of gratitude on my behalf for the advisement they give us. They give me, and they give the other facilitators who run through this program, as well as our professional educators that participate in this program year over year. So thank you. So we're going to start with a quick little overview of the history of the program. So the program started, it's actually in its 8th year since we began the program. It started forming in the spring of 2015. Really at its inception, the district at that time adopted a research-based practice of the SOAR teaching frames as its primary instructional strategy. And that was kind of the basis or the crux of starting this teacher professional growth system. The district administrative team and the Robla teacher leaders worked together collaboratively, during the planning and development of the review cycle model that we see today. They provided professional development focused on the SOAR teaching frames to all instructional staff. Specifically, there was a deep dive for teachers in this during the first 2 years of its implementation. And we also made sure that we had a tailored professional learning for our instructional assistant teams so that there was a common understanding of the SOAR teaching frames as kind of our basis for our instructional practices. For our new hire teachers, we didn't leave them out because we're not going to just give 2 years of PD and be done, because obviously we're going to have new people come on board and they need to be made aware of how the SOAR frames work and how the teacher professional growth system works. So one of the things we implemented is we have a full day that focuses on SOAR teaching frames and then an overview of the teacher professional growth system. So our new hires get a dose of that before they start their school year and engage in those practices. Plus, all teachers that participate in the review cycle receive a 1-hour training from these two fine professionals to my left. And they participate in that to understand what how the professional growth system works and all the intricacies of it, so that when they engage in that throughout the year, they're ready to go. In addition, for new hire teachers and tenured teachers alike, ongoing professional support in the SOAR teaching frames and the professional growth system are supported by a variety of engagement opportunities for staff throughout the year. So a couple examples of those are our weekly PLC times and site PLC meetings, where they have an opportunity to collaborate with their peers on these concepts. And then also we have our professional learning support teachers, which I know you guys have received presentations from in the past. Our PLSTs support our educators by coaching one-on-one, collaborating on lesson plans, providing lesson modeling on specific strategies, or connecting them with a teacher peer who has a strong command on that specific strategy. Our peer facilitators also support our educators by providing strong data-driven feedback on strategies and best practices throughout their review cycle. And then finally, our admin team, they definitely support our educators in their kind of role is to be an instructional leader with a number of resources to support teaching staff constantly to allow them to refine their craft and support of student achievement. So our pilot program was launched in between 2017 and 2019. We took 2 years to test out this program, and we had 32 participants in the program, tenured experienced teachers, who gave us an opportunity to really in the field study the cycle and see how effective it was and measure the efficacy of it. And they were able to provide us real-time feedback that definitely drove changes within the system to make it what it is today. Then we were ready to launch. In 2019, we actually launched the program, and we devised a 4-year plan of implementation to reintroduce all of our teaching staff back into the review cycle. Now, it's important to keep in mind that there were 150 staff members with 8 facilitators. So we had to come up with a 4-year implementation cycle to bring everybody back in, as to not overwhelm our facilitators and make sure there was some fidelity to the program itself. When the COVID pandemic hit, unfortunately, it postponed our implementation cycle because the Robla Teacher Association's leadership expressed concerns about teachers being reviewed during distance learning, which was a model that was unfamiliar to them. And we definitely heard those concerns. I mean, I wouldn't want to be reviewed on something that was new to me that I was learning myself. I'd want to have an opportunity to practice that before I was reviewed on it. So fortunately, it only postponed our implementation cycle by 1 year. So it ended up being a 5-year implementation cycle. As of this school year, 100% of our teachers are either right now participating in the review cycle because they're a brand new teacher this year, or if they started last year or prior, they've already had at least 1 review in the cycle. So we have 100% participation as of this year. We have had a few changes since the implementation of the program. In this last negotiation cycle, we changed 2 key factors in the program's makeup. And one of the first factors was the frequency of review for tenured staff, so people who are permanent. It used to be that they were reviewed every 3rd year, and the Teachers Association came to us and talked about, well, a long-time tenured teacher who's done well throughout their review cycles and their tenure in the district, why can't they be reviewed every 5 years? And so we said, well, let's think about that. So what we decided and agreed to with the teachers union is that if they had at least 15 years within the Robla School District of teaching, and they met on their last or most recent review a score of effective or highly effective, which is on a 4-scale rating, so it's the top 2 tiers, then they could push, their evaluation be pushed into that 5th year. If they didn't meet those 2 criteria, then they would be reviewed in their 3rd or 4th year past their last review cycle. The second change that we made was that we added directors as facilitators. So prior to this change, only the school site principal or our peer facilitators would be the ones conducting the review cycle for our educators. And what we determined is that there may be some specialty areas like maybe a speech language pathologist or a school psychologist, SDC teacher, who would want somebody to review them who is maybe familiar with the special ed setting, for example. Or maybe there's an EL or English language specialist who would like to have the director of English language services to be their facilitator because they're more familiar with the type of work that they do because it's a bit specialized. And so we went ahead and added the directors to be facilitators as an option for our educators. And so what this did is it allowed us to lower the caseloads for our current facilitators and kind of spread it out a little bit. And it kind of had this added bonus, you know, if you have a lower caseload, you have an opportunity to have like that more specialized or one-to-one service. So it really will give our educators an opportunity to really have that unique relationship with their facilitator on a regular basis. So now I'm going to turn all the details over to my friends. Here you go, Cheryl.
Good evening, trustees and Superintendent Chen. So Nicole was talking about personalization. So what we've done is there are 16 different evaluation types. Each of them has a multidimensional approach. So when the program first started, there were only 12, and I'll highlight the ones that we've added over time. There are 4 very broad types of evaluations based on the tool used for their evaluation. So our enrichment teachers, that's the art, PE, and technology, their evaluation is based on the SOAR frames blended with their specialty area. Our early childhood educators, it is based on the class tool, and that covers our preschool teachers. And then last year, this is one of the frames we added for our transitional kindergarten teachers.
So you're using the same evaluation for 2, even though standards
It's
are a little bit different?
But because there are a couple differences, but it is the same tool. And I can't remember the abbreviation class. We use so many acronyms, but it is very specific to those early childhood descriptors and what is happening for those younger learners versus, say, a 6th grader versus a 4-year-old.
Okay.
The other category is teachers. Those are classroom teachers, resource teachers, English learner support teachers, and intervention teachers. They choose from one of 3 SOAR frames, so either the disciplinary communication, disciplinary discussion, or mathematical discussions. And then our 4th broad type are those specialists. And those include psychologists, social workers, nurses, speech language pathologists. Last year, we introduced the peer facilitator evaluation type. And then this year, we introduced the professional learning support teacher evaluations, as well as the program specialist evaluations. And those are all based on domains that are tied to their professions. So, in those 4 broad areas, this is this year's group that we are currently serving. So you can see that there is a significant number of specialists this year, about 23%. That kind of speaks to the new hires that we have in those areas of psychologists, social workers, SLPs, as well as the introduction of the PLSTs and the program specialists. But by far and away, our largest group is the classroom teacher with 63%. So as we talked about before, those classroom teachers are spread out over 3 different SOAR frames, either the disciplinary communication, disciplinary discussions, or mathematical discussions. And this is the breakdown of our classroom teachers of which frame they've selected this year. Disciplinary communication is the most popular, which makes a lot of sense. It was the first frame when we first started our training years ago. It's kind of the most accessible. So lots of new teachers start there. What's interesting to note is the 30% of mathematical discussions this year. So at the beginning of the school year, our professional development was focused around math. And so we see that 30% of math there. If we compare it to the 21-22 school year, the professional development was centered around disciplinary discussions. So I think the data here kind of bears out what we know, that our teachers are very responsive to those trainings and putting them into practice. So I've talked a little bit about the who and what they're doing. Marcus is going to talk a little bit more about the when.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, everyone, for hearing what we have to share. Well, first we'll take a look at how often our teachers, our practitioners participate in the professional growth system. And that depends on, or it's determined by their status, are they probationary or permanent, and how long have they been in our district. It's broken into 4 tracks. Track 1, those are all of our probationary, temporary, and intern teachers, and they participate every year until they reach permanent status. Once a teacher or practitioner has reached permanent status within our district, then they're in tracks 2, 3, or 4. And the frequency of their participation is based on how long they've been with the district. Teachers who've been with us for 3 to 9 years, they participate every other year. They're in track 2. Track 3 are teachers who have been with us for 10 to 14 years, and they participate every 3 years. And then, as Nicole mentioned, there's a new track, track 4, and they participate every 5 years unless those parameters haven't been met. Then they're entered into the cycle in 3 years. Let's see here. And next we have a breakdown of what this year's participants look like, what tracks they're in. And as you can see, just over 50%, actually 60% of our practitioners are track 1. So we have over half of our participants are temporary, intern, or probationary status teachers. And then the remaining 40% are a mix of our tracks 2, 3, and 4, those permanent status teachers who've been with us for 3+ years. And here we have a distribution over the last 3 years. You'll notice at the bottom of our graph, we have 2021 up to our current year, 2023 at the top. And you'll probably notice that there's an increase in the number of track 1 teachers. Again, those are the probationary, intern, or temporary teachers. You'll also notice some fluctuation between the numbers of track 2, 3, and 4, our permanent teachers amongst those 3 years. And that's to be expected, as those teachers, they go in and out of the review cycle depending on how many years they've been in the district. So those numbers will fluctuate like that. And Cheryl's going to take a little bit closer look at those numbers and what they'll project to look like in the future.
So yeah, so as Marcos was talking about, those numbers kind of ebb and flow with those 4 different tracks coming in different frequencies and intervals. So this graph shows over time as well as projections going forward. So 1920 was the year that we first launched. So, and then that, of course, COVID, and you can see the dip in the following year with the MOU. And then the increase as everyone came back in that following year. Last year was projected to be our last really big year. Last year when I presented, we were projecting this year would be in the 60s, falling off into the 50s. As we know, things change, people retire, new hires. So you can see in this graph that pushing up of that great big dark blue of those probationary teachers is pushing those numbers up. You also see when the projections, so obviously our probationary teachers will be in, if they were hired this year, and next year, and then they would cycle out in the 25-26 school year, but then you notice everyone coming back in as permanent status in that 26-27. So that high proportion of those newer teachers do have effects, and they kind of ripple through over time. We also see that effect on the facilitator caseloads. So in this graph, the green are the permanent and the yellow are the probationary and intern. You'll notice for mine and Marcos, our bars are completely green because we only work with permanent teachers. But you can see, especially like at Glenwood with Dr. Rodriguez, a very high proportion of those probationary teachers. This is significant because those facilitators are very impactful in the process that our practitioners go through, improving their skills and, of course, student achievement. So Marcus is going to talk a little bit about how we know how impactful that can be.
Yeah, as Cheryl alluded to, the impact of the facilitator-practitioner relationship has come to our attention through feedback that we get from the practitioners. And there's a mechanism built into the system that allows practitioners to share feedback throughout the course of the review cycle. And we use that feedback to modify forms, fine-tune trainings, put procedures in place to hopefully make things more beneficial for the practitioners. And when we take a look at the feedback that we've received, three main topics jump out. And one of them is that the positive experience of their facilitator, of working with their facilitator, SOAR training and the importance of it, and Frontline, that's the online platform that the practitioners use throughout the review cycle, and their thoughts on using that system. So we'll take a look at some examples of that feedback. On this slide, we'll see three examples, and I won't read it for everyone, but the first example touches upon the idea that the system was user-friendly, and they felt they were able to manage it with the systems that were put in place, such as a schedule of clear deadlines, expectations that were detailed, and that was largely in part due to the feedback that was received by those practitioners. And so we were able to make adjustments to make their experience a little bit more friendly. The second comment has to do with the benefit of working with a facilitator and how they felt that was a positive experience, and also touches upon the importance of SOAR training. And the final comment on this slide talks about how using the forms and participating in the activities within the professional growth system has allowed them to be reflective, not only on their practice as a teacher, but also their role in their school community. And we have a few more comments, and these all touch upon the idea that working with their peer facilitator or their facilitator has been a positive experience, and also that using the professional growth system or their work within it has been a manageable one and one that they derive some value from. All right, and Cheryl's going to talk about where we're headed.
So as we move forward, we will continue to collect that data from our practitioners. We've added a couple more questions this year, just trying to get some more data about the timing and the building of that collaborative partnership. We want to make sure that we're replicating what's working and honing in on anything that might not be working to continue to refine the system. We do know that we will, moving forward, we're going to add 2 more evaluation types, a performing arts evaluation, as well as one for the preschool SDC, very specialized. So, and with that, are there any questions?
I think I'm confused about something.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a review system.
Yes.
Right? So what I'm confused about is the SOAR frame focus of practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly does it mean by like the three groups?
So basically there's the SOAR frame. So, and it's divided up into the high impact practice and then what we call cross-cutting practices, focusing on academic language, monitoring and guiding, as well as the metacognitive process. So those are the teaching strategies, as well as then there's for foundational. So that's what we're looking at, the teaching and the instruction that's happening.
So for the SOAR frames, we're showing 54% of people did disciplinary communication. Mm-hmm. Were they literally evaluated on their disciplinary communication?
So that's the frame, and there are 7 different areas that they're evaluated on. So one of them is like foundational and linking to standards and instructional and building and designing a lesson where the components build upon each other. There are sections in like monitoring and guiding. Are they helping students to express their ideas orally as well as in writing? So different frames. And then like the mathematical one would focus more on math and problem solving and things like that.
I guess it's just the language used is confusing to me. And it's like, why are we teaching disciplinary and spending the whole year evaluating it? And if they've been here for 15 years, they don't have to be checked again for 5 years.
It's discipline like math, science, reading, math.
That's right. Okay, that's why I was confused.
Not like this disciplinary.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot more.
I just want to just double check that because
Excellent question. Yes, and that's why
I said I think
are very important.
So thank you for that.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you so much. That was actually very, very both helpful and informative.
Yes.
Thank you. And by the way, congratulations. You guys did a phenomenal job with this. You guys put this together from scratch, and seeing it where it is now from when you first started, it is just phenomenal. So let me just say congratulations, and I'm glad that it's working for our practitioners.
We stand tall on the shoulders of those who did all the work before us.
Thank you. And sorry about my ridiculous question.
No, there are no such thing.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to action items. Action item A, approve a tentative agreement between Robla School District and Robla Teachers Association for the compensation and work year changes in the following classifications: program specialist, psychologist, and social worker to commence retroactive to July 1, 2023. Been moved in second. Would you like to discuss?
Sure. This was just finalizing the contract or negotiations for putting these specialists on a separate salary schedule than teachers.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item B, approve 5% increase in board member compensation.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item C, approve adding a transitional 457 and Roth 457 retirement plan with Schools First Plan Administration, effective February 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Would you like to speak to this one?
Sure. We already have a partnership with School First that offers our staff 403B, and this is giving them options for 457 and Roth 457. 457, right? No, it's 457.
Any questions? Discussion?
Will we be offering educational courses on the values of these as well? Or will they offer? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more deliberation or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, board meeting date change to January 25th, 2024. Or did I miss one?
Yeah.
Oh, I stand corrected. I apologize. I'm a man ahead of my time. Unfortunately, it's only about 2 minutes. Item D, approve MOU for Robla School District participation with California Collaborative for Educational Excellence.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to this one?
This is the PLN, the Professional Learning Community that Robla partners with CASA and CCEE. This MOU allows us to, I'm going to say, bill for services or recoup services up to $15,000. So there's no financial impact to the district.
Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, approve board meeting date change, January 25th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. So I guess we're going to be moving that meeting to January 18th, 2024.
Which is next Thursday.
Which is
just to be
next
clear.
Thursday. Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, board member requests for future agenda items or reports. Trustee Devine.
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Cardona.
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Hamilton Stark.
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Barnes.
Nothing at this time.
And I have nothing at this time. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so very much for all those who were in attendance. Thank you for all those who are watching. And we'll see you here, well, next week. Same bat time, same bat. Well, hour later for open session.
Yes.
So same bat channel. We'll see you then.